Thanks everybody for coming. If you haven't been in here yet, this is the Amherst Police Training and Community Policing Center. It's an old Harley Davidson showroom, warehouse, and it's really, I think, a very bright spot for the future of Amherst Policing, and we share it with Tonawanda for training. They have split some of the costs of some of the simulators and stuff in the facility. So it's my pleasure to be here with my good friend in government, Joe Eminger. Joe and I work closely together. We've been between text and phone calls probably furiously for at least the past 4 or 5 days. Right, it's a lot of contact. The phone goes off, it's probably Joe. We've been back and forth as neighboring communities, as you can imagine, over the past few days, trying to figure out exactly what's going to happen, and get to know what was happening in each other's communities in terms of community services, and so it's a good partnership. So I think everybody's probably by now aware of the governor's sort of order that we're basically most of Erie County, including both towns, are in an orange state, and that's a change from our previous yellow state, and so that has repercussions in the community. But I think both of us want to acknowledge that, you know, as dire as circumstances would seem, the reality is we're going into the holiday season with an opportunity to improve, to get ourselves back out of this. We've seen our peers downstate be able to do that relatively recently. And we think that there's a lot that groups and families are going to be able to still do here in Western New York. We're here to send a message that we all need to start to be safe, to think safe, to do a better job every moment that we can, to really start thinking about not only our safety but the safety of others. And there's some stuff that the communities are doing. I can speak to Amherst. Amherst is going to about a 50% remote operation. We're having people work remotely, either from their vehicles or remotely in other facilities the town owns, or remotely from home in some circumstances. We did that effectively yesterday. So we've really tried to thin out our town offices. All of our town services on the community end of our permitting, all of our clerk's office, all of that's up and operational. You can still come to town hall. We're asking people when you get to town hall to call the department that you're meeting with. Senior classes are going to be suspended for now. As everybody thinks, SAW exercise classes have to be suspended. So we're suspending senior classes. Our after-school programs are going to continue with school. I've spoken to at least a couple of the superintendents out here, and I know Amherst Central and Williamsville plan to carry on classes hybrid format through to the weekend, and then remote on Monday. So we'll continue our after-school program. A lot of our rec programs, though, are educational and athletic in nature, and those classes are going to have to be suspended. So we're going to suspend all those. We're going to also see in our library, is our libraries suspending in-house or traditional kind of browse library activity, and it's going to walk up. So you can order something, then and walk up, and the library staff will still be able to get you material as you need it. So those are a couple changes on the town end. Everybody, I think, is monitoring what's happening with UB. UB had intended to keep their classes up till Tuesday. Obviously, with this orange level, that Thanksgiving break, the classes are going to have to change in terms of how they operate. We do know of 100 cases at UB. We know that off-campus student housing is some of what drives numbers up in Amherst, not all. So we'll be looking for some changes. Damon College had already gone full remote as of this past Monday. So what I wanted to do is basically acknowledge that, yes, there are some personal care businesses, gyms, those types of facilities that aren't going to be able to operate. But retail is still operational. Food service is operational by takeout. And I think I can speak for both of us when I say that, we implore people to really, really think about shopping locally and ordering takeout and supporting our local restaurants and supporting our local businesses, because just as they had a tough time in April and May, a lot of those businesses continue to have a tough time throughout this year, and no doubt they'll be having a tough time. So as you're thinking about your holiday lists, as you're looking for something to do as a family to get your mind away from things that you can't do, order takeout, shop local, shop online local, really have an opportunity to maybe explore, what small shops there are. A lot of those businesses are doing a tremendous job with their precautions and their PPE programs. We are also here to help those businesses. So if businesses have a question, if they have a problem accessing PPE, they can call the town, and the town will do our best through our Emergency Operations Center to make sure that we're answering questions for them and making sure that those businesses can continue to function in a manner that promotes safety and promotes the safety and welfare of all of our residents. We're going to get through all this. We got through it earlier in the summer. We're going to get through it now. We're going to continue to move forward. I'm confident that Western New York, I'm confident Amherst and Tonawanda are going to be able to see our numbers decline, and we're going to get through orange and we're going to return to yellow hopefully soon, but it's going to take a lot of work, it's going to take a lot of dedication, and it's going to mean all of us have to take a little bit extra effort. With that, I'm going to invite my good friend Joe Eminger from Tonawanda.
Thank you, Brian. If you were watching the governor's press conference today, it's never a good thing when your town is listed as one of the higher towns with the higher COVID rate that they said, 6.84%. So as Brian alluded to, we have some work to do. All of us have some work to do. But the sky isn't falling. Okay, we're going to get through this. We're going to get through it together. And there is light at the end of the tunnel. We're not in May or June anymore. Okay, now we're almost to December. We had very positive news over the last 10 days, 2 weeks, in terms of the vaccine. Okay, vaccines, I should say that plural. Vaccines that are being developed and will be coming out hopefully next month. We got news yesterday for those of you, including myself, who had COVID, that the immunity system, it may stay, they think it may stay in your system now for most people. Now they're saying it could be decades. Another positive step, that has to be taken forward. So we want to know that the town of Tonawanda, the town of Amherst, all the communities are open for business. Okay, we're not shutting any offices. We do have to close our recreational facilities. Our golf dome will be closing. Our ice rink will be closing. Okay, senior center will be closing for the public. We're going to be having the congregate meals were stopped by the county last Friday, so our Meals on Wheels, and we picked up that, and they're continuing to provide meals to our senior citizens. And we just have to realize that we're going to get through this. Everybody's got to show a little bit more compassion. Everybody's handling this a little bit differently. So we got to make sure that we show compassion to our fellow citizens. We got to show compassion to those who are maybe struggling with this. Check in on your seniors, whether not only your parents, your aunts and uncles, just check in, make a phone call to them, let them know that you're thinking about them. Okay. Some of the things that we're looking to do in the town, our town offices are open. Like I said, we're not closing our municipal building. We're going to be working probably 50% from home starting on Friday. We're going to be implementing that, but you can walk in the municipal building. You got to go to the town clerk. You'll be able to get in there. You got to be able to get a hold of the supervisor. The supervisor is going to be there. Okay, so our facilities are all going to be open, and we hope that we're going to be out of this sooner instead of later. And I think that the news, while not unexpected today, It is a little discouraging. I'm not going to sit over here and paint a rosy picture. It's discouraging, but like I said when I started, the light is at the end of the tunnel. We're going to get out of this. The news on the vaccines probably means we're going to get out of this probably a month sooner than we would have maybe a month ago. We were thinking about getting out of this. So let's just try to help each other out over the course of the next few weeks. Thanksgiving is going to be a difficult time. We're the human race needs to embrace, and that's what we haven't been able to do for the last 8 months. We have that physical contact. We were made to be in physical contact with each other. We haven't been able to do that for the last 8 months. We're not going to be able to do it for the next few months, okay, 4 or 5 months maybe, okay. But that doesn't mean we can't use our mouths to communicate how we feel about each other and how much people mean to us. At that, I'll turn it over we'll turn it over for questions, and we'll go have at it.
Gentlemen, for both of you, have there been any problems with enforcement with businesses, even under the yellow zone and previously and what have you? Have either one of you had any issues to deal with?
In Tonawanda, for lack of for better or for worse, okay, Brian probably has more concerns with this, okay? We don't have the number of restaurants, we don't have the number of, I wish we did, but we just don't. So the enforcement has not been that big of an issue in the town of Tonawanda. Most people have been abiding by it. I think throughout Western New York, I think most people are abiding by wearing the mask and socially distancing. People just don't realize how contagious the virus is. House parties are a big problem, as we've all heard recently. Okay, and we really those got to stop. I mean, you just got to put those away. You can't do as good as the Bills are playing. You're going to have to watch those games with your immediate family. And just get through it. So from the town of Tonawanda standpoint, the enforcement issue has not been a big problem. And I know Brian's been very proactive in this. We've had conversations with ourselves and with other supervisors, and Brian's been doing this for 8 months, so I'll let you address how you've been doing the enforcement.
I think a lot of credit goes to our Amherst Police Department and our Emergency Services Group. They've been proactive. Before we went to Orange, weeks ago, they were meeting with businesses individually, talking to groups, whether building managers for off-campus student housing or restaurants or stores, about safety plans. And we've done that a couple of times where we've been proactive. We want to educate on the front end. We want to be there to help people if they have problems accessing stuff. We don't want to have to be there on the closure end. I think because of that, we've had a pretty good response in the community. You're always going to have our issues. It's a 126,000 person town, so there is a lot of restaurants, and there are a lot of bars, and there are a lot of businesses throughout the town. But I really think that, to their credit, the business community has responded well to our programs and said, okay, we're gonna do stuff to be, kind of compliant, and where we can't be fully compliant, we're gonna figure out another way, right? Is there a way to be safe? And that's what it's all about, right? It's this whole thing. There are some draconian measures that have to be taken. But at the end of the day, there's different ways to do stuff. There's different ways to adapt. We're losing the good weather. That's the real challenge that we're going to face. It was easier during the summer, easier during the fall. It'll be harder during the winter, and I think we have to acknowledge that. And it's going to put a lot more pressure on some of our businesses. But at the end of the day, we have seen pretty good compliance. I haven't. A handful of places that we've had to go knock on doors after the fact and deal with. But realistically, for the most part, our restaurants have sort of embraced the situation that they're in and done a good job with it. So I think Joe's probably got.
Yeah, I just have one from personal experience, okay? On election night, I went out to celebrate Councilman Conrad's victory in the Assembly race, 140th District, and he had a little soiree at one of the local restaurants in Tonawanda, and I'm standing around drinking my Coke, and it was Coca-Cola, and I'm standing around drinking my Coke, celebrating. all of a sudden I feel a tap on my shoulder, and it's a waitress. And I was just like this. I had my mask down, and she goes, "Excuse me, sir." She goes, "You have to put your mask up." And I said, "What?" I said, "I'm drinking my cola here." And she said, "Nope, unless you're sitting down, you have to wear your mask." I thanked her for doing that, because for that brief second, she was right to tell me that I had to put my mask on. So that's the kind of, I think, that most restaurants are abiding by. They're trying to follow the laws and the rules that they have to deal with. And because of that, we need to support them now.
Any idea, I know, Joe, you alluded to parties, and Brian, you discussed the UV cases, but any idea how the numbers became so high in both Tonawanda and Amherst?
Well, I think the issue is, right, they're both dense communities, there's more dense at Village of Kenmore, town of Tonawanda's, west side, that area is really the highest density area in all of western New York, even the city of Buffalo. And if you look at it, the second highest density is over here in Eggertsville. And there's a lot of people in a small space, and there's a lot of people using the same stores, and there's a lot of people using all of those things that are congregate, right? So, yeah, people point to parties, people point to gatherings, people point to everything from youth sports to school to whatever. As Joe mentioned, human nature's to be around each other. The more we're around each other in smaller indoor environments, the more it's spread. And everything that we've heard, and we've heard on calls with the county, is that, and there's a lot of community spread, they call it living room spread, right, where people have gone together. We're at a point in time now where I think a lot of these numbers reflect, maybe people had Halloween parties. Certainly, election night, we know people were together. We know there were a lot of people just working with each other in those time frames. So, regardless of exactly how we've got here, we know what we have to be able to prevent, right? So if we all want to be able to celebrate the Bills Super Bowl together, then we all need to be able to stay away from each other on Sundays going into that. So at the end of the day, we think that a lot of it is just that. A lot of it's just congregate, small groups getting together, which is tough, because if you think about the holidays coming up, we want to be around our relatives, we want to be around our larger families. And
Most of them.
Well, yeah, most of them. Your words. But it's going to be difficult. It is going to be difficult on a lot of Western New Yorkers. So again, take time to put phone calls in, take time to spend some time, whether it's via Zoom or whether it's kind of outside in a yard talking to people, whether it's through a pane of glass, right? All that stuff that we were doing back in May and June. We've got to start to resolve to do a little bit more of that now, and that's just the nature of what we're up against.
On the note of enforcement, you mentioned holiday shopping is coming up.
Yes.
County Executive Pullencar has announced today that malls can stay open up to 50%. How do you guys plan on enforcing malls and also big box stores like the Boulevard Plaza?
Well, the good news for us, I think, is that the Boulevard Mall only operates at less than 50% on a normal basis at this point. But no laughs at all. But no, the bottom line is, look, the Boulevard Mall is a shell of what it used to be. A lot of those stores, their operation, whether it's JCPenney's or Macy's, have really been limited, and they've kept them limited. When you think about the bigger shopping centers like the Boulevards or Consumer Plaza, up near the 290, we're going to be talking to all the store managers, Wegmans, right? We're going to talk to the store managers ahead of time and say, look, this is a situation where retail can be open, but your individual stores can get crowded. So we'll find out ahead of time what kind of precautions people are taking. I'll say this, right? I've seen you see it it started real heavy and then it kind of waned. But we're looking for stores to take some time to do shopping cart sanitization. If we're not into a point in time where they have to start literally limiting the number of people yet, but you could see a point in time where retail could have to start to limit the number of people coming in, and then you see the lines outside the Home Depots and such. So we're hoping, and we're going to continue to ask our businesses to look at curbside opportunities, to look at curbside amenities, to order up kind of things. But then it really is going to come down to people inside stores. You know, are you carrying hand sanitizer with you? Are you wearing masks? Are they masks that make sense, right? So, you know, if you're wearing a fabric mask, is it double fabric layer? Can you insert a filter? You know, if you can insert a filter, are you doing that when you go to stores? What kind of precautions are you taking as a person? Because, yeah, it's the holiday shopping season. These stores get busy. I think a lot of big retailers have stripped back their whole Black Friday thing, so we won't hopefully see that magnitude. We're also missing the Canadian market, which is terrible economically, but maybe it'll limit the amount of people in some of those facilities. But just take your time. There's no reason to be in a line in high density amount of people, you know, at 2 a.m. this year on Black Friday or earlier. Spread it out. You've got weeks to kind of deal with those things if you have to go to those places in person. But if you can order online from the nationals, do it.
I got a question on the Amherst schools, two-parter.
Sure.
Will Amherst schools be tested out of foreign zone restriction or shut it down? And if so, will you be helping in testing requirements?
So I can't speak to that. I've had conversations only with 2 of the 3 superintendents, Anthony Pinella from Amherst Central and interim superintendent McKenna from Williamsville so far. Both of them identified what they think their numbers would have to be in order to test out. I think both admitted that it's a pretty tall order to try to deal with that many tests. I know that be careful here, we don't operate the schools, but both schools plan to continue their hybrid through the end of this week, go remote, and then discuss with their board whether or not they want to take a shot at that. I don't know where they'll end up. I can tell you, you know, the towns here, we're prepared to try to help administer stuff if they need. But at the end of the day, I think Williamsville will be like 9,000, 10,000 students. I can't imagine that provides a healthy dose of reality if they're going to go that route. But remains to be seen.
I just, you know, one of the good things, if you want to put it that way, our businesses had to adapt back in the spring. Okay, so now there's nothing really new to them. They've gone through how to do the takeout and the curbside. Everybody was scrambling early on, if you recall, not that long ago. So they saw, most had probably seen this possibly coming. I mean, the second wave was always being discussed, that it was going to be coming in the winter, and you know, I think restaurants, they started to prepare for this, and so I think the shock, if that's the word to use, is less now. But that doesn't take away that everybody should still be supporting our local businesses as much as they can over these next 4 or 5 months, especially.
Supervisor Amherst, as someone that experienced coronavirus, what's your reaction to Governor Cuomo saying Western New York hasn't felt the wrath of the virus?
Next question. I don't know what the governor meant by that, but I got to be honest with you. I think a lot of people, myself included, were a little surprised by that remark. COVID is real. It's just as real in Western New York, in Tonawanda and Amherst, as it is in New York City. And those who have had it, and those who have lost loved ones, more importantly, those who have lost loved ones, weren't too happy with that remark. I'm just going to be honest with you. And our area did suffer. Okay, I mean there was pain in this Western New York region in the spring and summer, and I think the governor may have been referencing us to New York City compared to New York City, who had it worse, but that doesn't mean it still wasn't bad here. And there was a lot of pain and a lot of suffering by a lot of people here, and that's the reason why another positive thing is going that more people are getting the virus now. You can't argue with that. More people are getting hospitalized. The numbers are the numbers. You can't argue with that. what I take a little comfort in is that the severity of those going into the hospital and going into the ICU are not as dramatic as they were earlier in the year. So we've learned how to treat COVID better. They're not throwing you on a ventilator right away, okay, which 80%, if you recall the statistics back in the spring, 80% of people who went on ventilators didn't get off ventilators. Okay, so they're using different therapies. We have different drugs. So more people are getting sick, bad. More people are going to hospitals, bad. Less people, percentage-wise, I believe, are dying. But one death is too many. We all, especially, you know, if it hits your family, but one death is too many. But we are getting better at dealing with COVID. COVID's going to be here, folks, 10 years from now. Okay, COVID's going to be here. It's not going away. People are going to be dying from COVID 10 years from now. So don't think, you know, the vaccine's going to, you know, be the end all, okay? We just got to get the vaccine, as many people can get the vaccine, and we'll go on fairly normal, I think, back to normal. It won't be like pre-9/11 and post-9/11. I think once we, you know, the masses, and it might take till the end of next year for the masses. We won't be wearing the mask at the end of next year, but it might take longer to get back to normal. But I think we're going to get back to normal. I really do. I don't think it's going to be pre-9/11, post-9/11.
Would either one of you gentlemen urge your police departments to be a bit more stringent? I mean, I know you're not the police chiefs, but would you urge your police departments to be a bit more stringent? And I don't know what they can do realistically, count cars in the driveway, I don't know what they're gonna do, but would you anticipate that?
Look, I can't speak for Tonawanda. I can just say that from my standpoint, Amherst police have been doing their job. That we've been we meet regularly in emergency operations center meetings. Whether right now it's twice a week. It always includes upper level police leadership. Frankly, it's not just police, it's the building department as well, right? Code enforcement wears many hats. We are meeting, they are pursuing this stuff, they are trying to tackle things. The bottom line is you can't be everywhere all the time, you know, and you can't grab every violation and everybody who takes their mask off in a store. It's impossible. But, you know, we have taken a lot of proactive measures, and the police are out there. Police are showing up at stores, and we're doing it both for our police reform plan. We're doing pop-ups in different places. We're handing out PPE. We're making sure people have access to that stuff. We did PPE, you know, drives. We're calling into multifamily housing communities regularly, making sure people are abiding by PPE. You know, when you're talking about 8 to 10 story apartment complexes that are full, a lot of people in them, you know, it would be impossible to try to regulate everything all the time everywhere. But I know our community is doing a good job, and I know our police are doing a good job. Now it becomes incumbent upon all of us as residents to you know, not create a situation where police have to take an action that they don't want to have to take. But ultimately, will I continue to? Yeah, our police are right up front with this whole situation. Usually, when you open up an emergency operations center, you know, it's for a 1 or 2 day event, and I think that our emergency operations center has been open, since March 15th, or something along those lines, and the police have been right there with us the whole time. I'll just add a couple of quick items to what Joe just talked about. I have a strange situation in town. I guess it's a benefit to the town as a whole, but you know, one of our council members, Sean Lavin, is captain in Air Force Reserve, and he was actually in charge of dealing with some of the temporary mortuary stuff in New York City. So he was regularly zooming into our board meetings early on. It's a sobering effect. So a lot of people have asked me, oh, when will the town move to live board meetings? When will you go live with your committee meetings? The answer to that has always been we don't feel comfortable with it yet. And the reason for that, frankly, is is we know that what can happen. I think we know the effect of COVID. As a board, nobody's seen more of it than Sean. We plan to keep all of our meetings virtual now through the end of the year. It shouldn't come as a surprise to many people. That's board meetings. And the other question I've gotten at times is, how do you continue to move projects forward, especially big projects, while you're in this virtual environment? Early on, I would have said that we would have loved to have been able to get past the virtual environment before we did some of those public hearings. The bottom line is, I don't know that anybody could have guessed the length of this, how long this pandemic would continue to hamper things. So I'm glad that we have continued to move town projects forward. I'm glad that we have continued to move public hearings forward in spite of being in Zoom. It's an adaptation. Yes, I know people have a little bit more challenge maybe getting into Zoom than they do being live and in person and showing up at town hall, but you can see right now how necessary those types of precautions are. So it's forefront, and I think Western New Yorkers get it. I think that we have some circumstances right now that got a little bit out of control. So I'm confident that in Western New York we'll be able to lock in and get this back under control, and we'll get back into yellow and hopefully out of yellow before too long.
And we're gonna just, following up on Brad, the town has gone back, the town of Tonawanda has gone back to having in-person meetings, town board meetings, since July, sometime in July, mid-July, I believe. We are going to be going back to the remote meetings, starting with next Monday's meeting, and we'll be going at least till the end of the year as well. And our zoning board meeting, which was this, I think it's tonight actually, we had to do that live because the notice already went out. So we'll be moving all our zoning board or planning board meetings into virtual. They worked out well. That's the one thing we found out again. They worked out well in the spring. And we're going to continue it. Back to the question, just very briefly on the police enforcement in the town of Tonawanda. Our police chief and his administrative team have been in constant communication with me over the past 8 months, and they continue to be very proactive in keeping an eye on things and making sure that things don't get out of control, so to speak. Okay, they're not going to stop people just walking down the street if they're not wearing their mask up, okay? I mean, I get calls, I'm sure Brian's gotten calls like that, and I tell the residents, thank you for calling me, but is that really what you want your police department to, to be doing? If there's a congregate group, if you see 15, 20 teenagers hanging out in the park, yeah, I've gotten those calls as well. Which the public has notified me, and then I tell call the chief and say get a patrol over there. So the public has been very responsive to letting us know when those occasions are happening, and we'll continue to be vigilant enforcing that as we move forward.
All right, Ryan, just one quick, going back to what you already asked about UB, and then we'll let this go.
Sure.
I know they have their own police force there, and I don't want to say that college students would get out of line and what have you, but we've all been there. Does that present a particular challenge to your community since you have this large university within your community?
I don't know what kind of college you went to. No, just yeah, it presents a challenge. It's UB, it's Damon, it's ECC. There's a lot of kids that are, it's a college town, Amherst for sure. Does it pose a challenge? So UB lives in kind of a couple different worlds, right? There's the on-campus stuff that is pretty controlled. Once you're on campus, and then there's off-campus, and UB police sort of stop at the campus border, right? So does it pose a challenge? Well, yeah, the way I think it poses a challenge is you take a 126,000 person population, resting population, you balloon it up to 188,000, closer to 200,000 people during the day because of UB and because of Damon. And so your population increases, during the day. That's people coming from all over Western New York, right? So if there's somebody in Hamburg who has the virus, they could well be coming to Amherst. And it's not just for UB and Damon, we're a big regional center for shopping and for finance administration. We have a lot of big regional corporate headquarters here. So people come into Amherst all the time. Now, those aren't recorded as Amherst situations, right? They're Hamburg or West Seneca or Tonawanda or Orchard Park, but that it's like a heart beating. People are coming in and out all the time. So it poses a challenge because it's not like, you know, we can just look at a zip code and say, hey, it's limited to that zip code. It's, well, who's coming in from other zip codes and what's happening, right? So it's a challenge, but it's something that, you know, we just have to work through. UB going remote, you know, sounds great. Yeah, okay, less college kids and off-campus housing, less people coming to campus. Sure, but economically, what does that do, right? It takes its toll. So, you know, that's the other side of the spectrum. I mean, you don't have to look very far. I think everybody at this point knows, you know, that, you know, Amherst lost a lot of revenue this year, sales tax and all sorts of other, right? That's the downside of all this stuff. So, so while it poses a challenge, it's also our economic, you know, heartbeat, and we have to safeguard those measures. So we work hard at that, and we're willing to work hard at that.
And don't, you know, the town of Tonawanda is also impacted by UB, okay, very greatly, okay, because we border up to Amherst. We got the south, you know, we have the north campus, but more in particular, we have the south campus. We have a lot of housing, a lot of student housing over in our Kenilworth section in the town, okay, so if it affects Amherst, something happens to UB, it affects the town of Tonawanda, at least a portion of the town of Tonawanda. Are we ready to wrap up? I just want to close, okay, with just reminding everyone that, you know, we are from Buffalo, we are from Western New York, we are a compassionate community. All you have to do is look at what they did for Josh Allen's grandmother. Okay, people need to just help each other out over these coming months. I believe with all my heart and soul that we're going to get through this just fine. Some people are going to get through it better than others, and that's dependent on the rest of us then to lift those people up. We have to lift each other up over these next few months, and don't be so quick to criticize, whether it be an elected official or your teachers or something like that. Just stay the course, and we'll be just fine. Okay? Thank you very much for coming today. Appreciate it on short notice.
Thanks, everyone.